and welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop. I'm your host Jen, and I'm very excited to talk about today's episode. But before we begin, there will be spoilers as we talk about major events that unfold within the story. In addition, each episode will have a list of trigger warnings in the description. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast, and show your support on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. And welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop. Guys, I still have this random stranger that I found outside in my house, and she's back again for another episode.
I have been here for 3 years. I still don't have a bed or a room. Happy to be here. Happy to be invited to something, you know?
You know, maybe this year will be it. Maybe you'll get a bed.
Wow.
Or at least a blanket.
I'll take it.
You can stop using the rug. Alright, we're moving on. So, this is episode 75, and we're releasing this in April.
That's so crazy. What's in April?
April Fool's Day.
I believe that it's Jen's birthday?
Not today anymore, which is unfortunate.
It is really tragic. I have been on the birthday podcast every single year so far. We had to change it up this year because there were no books left in our favorite series.
We did the All for the Game series, and if you haven't read that,
don't.
Both unfortunate and fortunate of you. Now we're moving on. Time to do something different. I mean, we also done other books. We did, the Michigan Chiller books and stuff, but now we're moving on to another one of my favorite books, and it's called She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan.
Question for you.
What's that?
Why did you bring this book?
Because I like it.
Because the cover's pretty?
The cover's pretty. No, so this book was suggested to me actually by TikTok. They said that this book was like a mixture of Mulan and Song of Achilles, which is two of my favorite things. So obviously if you put two in a pot, they're going to mix. So I'm in for it. Yeah, it's really good. And I'm so happy I picked it up, and I'm ready to read the sequel, which came out, I want to say last year, at the end of last year. I got the book for Christmas, and I haven't read it yet, because I've been waiting for this podcast, so I don't accidentally spoil anything for the next book, so I was excited.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you read the second one yet, just making sure.
I started reading it, and then I was like, I'm going to get confused of, what's already been done, and, where this leads off. I'm going to want to just talk about that one, so I was like, I'll just wait. I already have the book on Libby, I have it on my Kindle, I'm ready to go. And I got my tabs ready to annotate it. So you are going to summarize this book in 30 seconds. Try your best, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
This book stars our main character, Ju Chung Ba, and she is a little peasant girl in this town, and it is a story of her receiving her destiny and not believing it, and doing everything in her power through joining a monastery and then a rebellion in order to achieve a destiny that is greater than the one she was promised.
Heck yeah. I'm gonna summarize it really quick for anybody who hasn't heard of this book. In 1345, China lies under the harsh Mongol rule. For the starving peasants in the Central Plains, greatness is something only found in stories. When the Chu family's 8th-born son, Chu Shamba, is given a fate of greatness, everyone is mystified as to how it will come to pass. The fate of nothing is received by the family's clever and capable second daughter. When a bandit attack orphans the two children, though fated differently, it is Chamba that falls to despair. Desperate to escape her own fated death, the girl uses her brother's identity to enter a monastery as a young male novice. There, propelled by her burning desire to survive, she learns she is capable of doing whatever it takes to stay hidden from her fate. She uses the chance to claim another future altogether, her brother's abandoned greatness. Yeah, so this is a retelling of the Ming Dynasty, Honghua Emperor, but it's rewritten in obviously a very queer story. Again, that Mulan aesthetic where it's a woman disguised as a man, which is very interesting because all of these characters are you can Google it and there's a realistic storyline behind it, and it's super cool. But I do want to know your initial thoughts when you were reading this.
Yeah, so honestly, when you suggested this book, I wasn't afraid to read it. Obviously, I'm not very big into historical books really, or just like history in general, is never been my favorite thing, but I was excited to kind of read something new, especially because I just read 2 super high fantasy books, so then going into a history, all I knew to expect was that it was kind of a Mulan vibe, just based off of the description of her, like, taking her brother's fate. Immediately, I was like, that's a really cool idea. I honestly didn't even know that this was a retelling. I think that is such a cool way to do it. I think a lot of people have a hard time making something new these days because so much exists, but being able to take a story that already exists, but saying, well, what if it happened this way, I think is something that a lot of people are starting to do, and is a really cool way to, like, introduce people to things that happen in history, but give it just, like, a different perspective on it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that, but I really didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. There was not a single part of this book that was hard for me to want to pick it back up and keep going. The whole time I was just like, wow, what's going to happen next? What's going on? And it was mainly due to the most beautiful writing I have ever read.
And this is debut novel, which is insane.
It's literally amazing. The first chapter, I was like, whoa, I have never read anything written this well. Every person I've said anything to about this book, I was like, I didn't think I'd be interested in a book about 14th century China, ever. But you have to read it for the writing alone. I know that I have not read nearly as many books as Jen, and will never surpass her number.
You don't know that.
She secretly has never read any of these books.
Yeah, I just spark notes all the books I do on the podcast.
Perfect. But just from the first chapter, it was like, it is so beautifully written. The descriptions are something that when I'm writing, I struggle with, so it was super cool. These things be described in ways that I never would have thought of. Visual. Like, I could see everything that was being written, and that was more compelling to me than the story itself even, which is not saying the story itself is bad in any way. Writing and the quality of it makes me want to read the next one more than the story, honestly, because it was just so good.
So what in this book is your favorite quote? Also, we're trying our hardest here, but these are very old Chinese-inspired names, so we're going to try our hardest to get them down. We have been practicing, so we apologize in advance if we misspeak or mispronounce any of these names or any of these locations or anything like that.
The main character, Zhu Chengba, this is a quote from her where she says, "However tired I am, however hard it is, I know I can keep going because I'm alive." I really liked that when later there was another quote by Ouyang who said the worst punishment is being left alive. That was in reference to her as well after this fight I'm sure we'll talk about later. I really like the contrast between those because they were the 2 main characters. It obviously switched and showed some of the other characters as well, but those were the 2 main characters, and just like their different views, especially towards the end of the book, is they always had that contrast throughout, and then in the middle, it kind of got muddled, where they were going down their own paths, but they started to think the same, and then they almost flopped, where she became so, like, set in her ways, and so, like, forcing herself to achieve this greatness, and he had almost given up. Just the contrast between that. There was a lot of times where they talked about being alive. There was a lot of quotes. She always had this super positive outlook because she knew she had something to achieve and she refused to give up. And then for him, the worst punishment being left alive. In his eyes, ruined, mutilated, and that's how he had been living. And that was the worst punishment to him, but she used that to her advantage. So it just showed, like, the different perspectives on it.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about both compare and contrast, because I think that's one of the biggest things about the story, is that that's why those 2 are our main characters, because there's a good amount of characters in this story, and it could have easily been Ma and Ensign. But obviously, these were our main characters for a reason. But no, I definitely like you had said, where it kind of flips at the end. She's trying so hard to get to her fate, where Ouyang is trying to hide from fate and, like, trying to avoid his fate. Leads to a very compelling story later on.
Jen, what's your favorite quote?
I didn't have one.
Oh, no? Okay. In such a beautifully written book, you couldn't find
I just couldn't. I just brought the whole book. So let me start with page 1.
Okay.
You guys have about 18 hours? Probably more, because I can't read. So
yeah, the audiobook is like 13.
Okay, so the quote that I brought is, this is when Ma has been introduced, and we'll talk about Ma a little bit later, but the only thing you need to know is that Ma was the fiance of a general. So little Gua, and then eventually little Gua yeets from existence. And then Ma ends up marrying our main character. She was telling Ma that she needs to desire, to go for those desire, that she isn't just a woman who has one duty anymore. She was letting her have more than that by choosing to marry her, essentially. And so Ma, at this point, doesn't know that she was a woman yet. She still thinks that he's the monk. If you know anything about back in the day, women had a very particular part in the family and in society. So when Shu comes up and says, you need to desire for more, back then, it was really hard for them. And this is just a little quote to kind of explain that a little bit more. She knew instinctively that he hadn't been performing. It was something he believed. But in the same instance, she saw that raw truth of him. She realizes that that was all it was, something that was true for him. A man could want anything in the world offered and still have a chance, no matter how small, of achieving it. For all he acknowledged her of being capable of desire, he hadn't seen her reality, that she was a woman, trapped within the normal confines of a woman's life, and everything that could be wanted was all equally impossible. She rose to leave. Maybe your suffering is worth whatever it is you want to achieve, but mine won't be. And just, just kind of a little ironic because she's speaking to a woman, but again, she doesn't have that mindset, so it's just raw emotion. Your suffering might be worth it, but mine won't be, because she will suffer and suffer and suffer and will never achieve what she wants. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited for Ma in the next book to see how she does grow within that desire now that her wife has shown her that she can.
I loved how she went around and as a man continued to tell all of these women that they could achieve things, and they continued to just not believe her because they had never heard that before, especially another man, but from anybody. To see Ma go through that of being told she could desire something else and not believing it, to towards the end finally believing that she could desire something and it would be possible if she tried hard enough to get there, because to everyone else she still was a woman.
Yeah, it's just interesting at that point because he is a man, so having not only a man tell you what to do, she's like, girl, what are you talking about?
Yeah. She's like, wait, you're telling me what to do, that's normal, but you're telling me that I can do what I want? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So what are some things that you liked about this book?
There is a lot I liked about this book. Obviously, I already talked about the writing style and everything, and I could talk about that the entire podcast, but I won't. Read this book and read all of the descriptions of everything and just really soak it in. I think if you're someone who's a writer, this book could help you become a better writer, honestly. Thinking of ways to describe things that I never would have thought of, and the comparisons, they just made so much sense. The most random things compared to each other, and I'd be like, somehow that just makes so much sense to me, and I felt like I could see it, that the writing was just so phenomenal, that Shelley did the most phenomenal job.
These are my writing goals. I want to get to this point in life. There was a scene where she's talking about something so mundane. It was chopsticks that Lord Wong was using, and she described them as lovebirds that were knocking their noses together or something like that. Something so simple that I can already visualize somebody using chopsticks announces the way that they're being moved. It just changes your perspective on it. It makes it so visual, but the writing is absolutely so significant. I think that's what sells the story, is how good that this book is written. I will say though, if you don't like metaphors and similes and stuff, you might not fall as deep into this book. It does use a lot of similes for stuff. So if you think that's very clunky or gets in the way, you might not feel the same way. But I think this book is just absolutely gorgeous. It is so beautifully written. I can't describe it enough. of how the simple words I'm using compares to this. Like, it's just so good. And not only the way that writes things, but the way that progresses these feelings, shifts time. There was this one specific scene that she was getting stabbed, but the way that she lingered on the pain and the way that there was this, like, visual effect to it, it was so good, which is weird to say about a scene that somebody's getting stabbed in, but it really showed that pain through there. And pain is, like, one of the hardest things to go across, whether that's emotional, physical, whatever kind of pain. It's hard because you only put your own personal perspective in, and I've never been stabbed, so I don't know what that feels like and, like, what that is.
Let's run it.
But being able to read a character get stabbed and actually feel like I'm feeling it, it's just so different, and I really loved it.
Like you said, even the descriptors for just the most small things, it makes the book so much more powerful because, of course, you can envision what it looks like for someone to be using chopsticks. That's not new. That's not something that you would even have to describe. But it goes so deep in detail on exactly how people are doing things. And not just that they're doing the thing, but they're doing it in a very specific way that is described so well that you might as well be watching a movie. It is really hard, especially to describe things that, you've never been a part of. Obviously, I don't think that Shelley fought in a war in the 14th century China. Maybe.
You'd be surprised.
Maybe. But being able to describe everything so well and so detailed is truly a talent that I can't imagine possessing. Just the comparison between the two of them, I think that every book benefits from a POV change. I really do. I don't think that any story should ever only be told by one perspective, unless that's intentional. The POV change was so important in telling a whole story here, especially between the two sides fighting, is you don't just see the side that you presume to be the good guys or the bad guys. You're seeing both. And you're seeing how each side is also good and bad. You see a lot of that comparison. It just really helps, in a way, understand why they're fighting, but then also you don't. Because it's just for power, but then people on both sides want the same things. The comparison is phenomenal between the two main characters, but also just the two sides in the war. And seeing, like, their strategies that they come up with and them figuring out what the other side is doing before they do it, and then seeing that side planning that same thing. So I just think in a lot of war things, you don't see both sides as much. And if you do see both sides, then one side is put on this pedestal of this so good, and the other side is, oh, this is the bad side. They have no redeeming qualities. They have nothing that makes you want to root for them. And of course, Khan is the main antagonist in this story, and pretty much everybody knows who Khan is. We've all learned about him in history before, so we all know that he is not a great guy at all. But to see the people who fight for him and their sides being like, well, maybe everyone on that side isn't bad too, I think that's just like a really good take. I mean, in war, there is no winners and there's no good and bad. It's war. It's what it is people are dying on both sides. People have their own desires, their wants. And in the end, one person is going to get what they want, but at what cost? And to see that cost to both sides too is really important. Like, to see the bad guys lose 10,000 men and feel bad for them is crazy. Because in most things you'd be like, yeah, that's awesome for these other guys. But it's not. Because then you really think about the toll that takes on them. And obviously the lives lost is astronomical. But I just really like seeing the good in the bad and the bad in the good as well. It was a beautiful theme in this book that I really enjoyed.
No, I definitely agree that you get to see both sides, which is really cool, and you get to see the mastermind work behind the both sides. I really like being on, like, the red turban side because we get to see the progression of power move around a lot, especially with our main character, Joe, that is moving within the ranks itself. And then we have Oyeon on the other side, who is already a general, and who is on top and has to keep that keep being on top. They're both work. It's not like once you get on top, you're on top. And you have to show that there is that chain of command where Oyeon is struggling half the time to stay on top. Where Shelley becomes a little bit easier for her, but not because it's not work, but it's because she's incredibly smart and does very smart things, like the 10,000 man avalanche, or the landslide or whatever it was that happened. The first time I read that, I was so confused. I thought she generally made the landslide. And I was like, oh, now I got it. The second time I fully
did too, until I think it was Ma who said, you recognize, because of course they both were so smart, and she could see everything she was doing, and she was like, so you saw the weakness in the land, and then you made the men chant, but then making it look like it was just the heavens that did it for her. It's so smart. She is so smart, and I really like when you see when she decides to do something in the story, but you don't get to see what it is yet, to see what it appears as to everyone else, and then she kind of goes into her mindset on it,
because she went to the inventor Zhao and made both the bombs, and she made the device for the landslide and stuff, so you get to see the setup, but you don't see the follow-up until later, which is really cool. Speaking of Ma, she is another point of view that we get in the story. Obviously not as much, but we still get a lot of her in the story, which is very interesting. I personally think it's come to play in the next book, and I'll explain why later once we get to predictions. It's very interesting because we don't really get a whole bunch of bigger chunks. We get some of Lord Wong, we get some of Isun, but not a lot. Very short clips of them. It's usually Oyeon and our main characters. I'll say this every single podcast. I love point of view change. Like you said, I think it's so important. It's so important to show other sides because it gives us a broader statement of what is the other side doing? And it lets us choose. When it's one person, it forces us to have a mindset of the other characters because we're only seeing it through one point of view. Our mind's made up for us, essentially. Where in this, we get to choose, do we sympathize with the general or do we sympathize with the monk? There's a lot of compare and contrast on them, but who do you root for? And it's cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think the POV change is so important because it builds the world, where if you do just the one character, you're seeing, it's got that big main character energy where this is their world, that's everything. But it shows you how big the world is. And then even for a brief moment towards the end, she talks about how big the world is. But you really get to expand over this land that they're in to see all different cities, all different sides of both because of the point of view changes. And I think that it would really be lacking a lot if it was just in her point of view. I liked a lot of stuff about it. I just love the concept in general. I also wrote down a quote. It was right after her brother died, and she said, he had chosen to become nothing. The girl wanted to scream at him. Her fate had always been nothing. She had never had a choice. The most important in the whole book because that's the driving force behind, what she does. But I think that the concept was so cool to be this fate is not going to be wasted just because he didn't want to achieve it and he didn't want to try. That she was willing to do anything to achieve someone else's fate. The willpower that she had to just decide.
So some of my likes, I want to first give a huge shout out to Karen Strassman, the woman that narrated this book on audiobook. My God, could you fall in love with the voice? I don't know, but I think I did. She has such a gorgeous voice and does so good. Reading this book, getting the names down, she did an amazing job. She really sold this book. So a huge shout out to her for doing such a good job. A lot of my likes is we've already been back and forth on, but I do have some very specific character stuff that I liked because one of my big things when I read books is characters. Can I relate to them? Can I enjoy them? Do I hate them? I want some sort of connection because the plot can only drive you so far if you don't have good characters. What really drew me into this is obviously the Mulan with the Song of Achilles drive, but there was also a little bit of Avatar vibes going on. I could see Aang in her. Not fully. Maybe maybe Kyoshi is a better
Yeah,
choice,
yeah.
but
The monk vibes.
the monk vibes, yeah. But no, there's a whole thing we're going to talk about later called the Mandate of Heaven, which is one of the big powers on the Red Turban side. That whole idea of that gave a lot of Avatar vibes for me. If you don't know, I love Avatar. It really drew me in. So I really like that. Also, this book being unexpectedly queer was awesome. Like, it doesn't show anywhere on here that this book is queer until you start reading it.
Yeah.
One of the driving force for your book shouldn't have to be just queer representation, but it's amazing to have that in there. Shelley themselves are part of the LGBT plus. They support it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I guess I'm speaking through Ma mostly. She almost having this like demisexual vibe going on too, because she didn't feel anything for anybody, not like her brother did. And when she meets Ma, it changes some things. So I really love that because she is very one-track mind. She doesn't care about love. She's not here for it. She's got her own things to go. She got a dream to chase, you know? But then Mom, she meets her and everything changes.
I had no idea when I read this book.
I left it in the dark because I wanted you to see it.
Yeah. I was listening to it and then my mouth dropped. It gives like a little bit of the vibe where you're like, maybe because, you know, it is a woman who's pretending to be a man, and at some point expect her to be getting married and have this family if, you know, she wants to continue her bloodline, because that's a super big driving force for all of them, is they want to continue their bloodline.
But she is a monk, so it's not required.
Exactly. So then it wasn't pushed as much, but then as she started to take on these other roles and kind of was moving a little bit away from the monk side, she was like, you know what, just marry me. And you're like, whoa, okay. I did not expect there to actually be like a relationship between them. And so I was very surprised. I really do like that a lot of, even looking up stuff in this book, because I've like obviously looked it up and read the description and everything before, I didn't see anything about it. And I like that because then it would encourage other people to read it and then hopefully be like, oh, okay, that makes sense with the story, and keep going, unless, you know, it wasn't part of the selling for it, because I didn't think it needed to be. Because I don't think the story would have been worse off if it wasn't in there, but it was definitely a pleasant surprise. It makes sense. Gay people existed, okay?
Yeah.
They're not brand new.
Yeah, and I like it that we get on both sides, too. Like, obviously, Isun and Oyeon don't go as far. They don't get married or anything. But you can tell there's true compassion and true love between them. Oyeon, I think, if he would have let himself accept what he felt for Isun, it would have gone farther. They would have at least, like, hooked up a few times. But he just was so bent on revenge that he separated himself as much as he could. As much as his mental body would let him, because he was devastated at the end when, you know, spoilers, that he does kill pretty much that whole family. His love for Isun changed a lot of things, and I think it changed him because he didn't expect to fall in love with him. I don't want to get into predictions yet, but I just can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah. Because obviously the whole time he knew that had to get revenge for his entire family. He was the only one left. His whole family, the ghosts of them, followed him around. Had to do something to make that happen. I think it was so unexpected for him to fall in love with him. Of course, because that was never the plan. It was to wait out the time until it was right, until he could. And he did do that, and he did end up taking the revenge that he had planned on. But it was so bittersweet for him at that point where he got no satisfaction from it. It was just I have to do this anyways. If anything, it hurt him more to achieve what he wanted than to not.
Yeah.
But that shows just, you know, how powerful that driving force was, is he was like, you seem to have forgotten that I am still a son. Because everybody looked at him differently, of course, his entire life. And, you know, they didn't think that he had any of these thoughts and feelings, and he would just go along with what he had to, because that's what he showed them he would do.
Yeah.
And that scene was just it was probably like my favorite from the entire book, is just when he does kill him and then he just holds him on the ground as he dies, and he tells him he's going to kill him before he does, and he doesn't stop him because he you can kind of see, like, his love for him, too, is he's like, well, this is what you need to do, so.
Ouyang was gonna kill Isun.
Mm-hmm.
Isun would never kill Ouyang. That is the destined fate, because Isun never would have been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He was a vicious man. He was a man of a general, and he was the Prince of Fudan. And Isun, when it came to people that he loved, he had a weak spine. Like, he eventually grew to hate his brother for a miscommunication, and obviously set up by Ouyang. Again, that is his destined fate, to die because he wasn't strong enough to live. But we could go on and on about it, but we'll move on. My last like is just, I like that all the characters are different. And that's a driving force. Like, a huge thing is that every character is different. Mm-hmm. Even our main character, Zhu, says, Ma, you're different than me. That's why we need to team up, is because you are a compassionate person. And I don't want to forget myself. And I don't want to forget about compassion when I am killing the world to become the emperor. I have a goal in mind, but I don't want to completely lose myself. So that's why I want to be with you. I just love that every character, there's something you can relate to in one of these characters. So what are some things that you did not like about this book?
The ghosts. I understood it at the end, but I think for the whole book, I was really kind of confused about it, and I was just like moving on every time they brought them up, being like, I'm sure this will make sense at some point. If I were to reread the book, I would like the ghosts part of it more, because I understand why they're there, and because it does show that she did have that mandate of heaven. But every time they brought up the ghosts, I was so confused on who could see them and who couldn't, because it felt like more people could see them. It felt like Ouyang could see them in the way that she described it, but he never mentioned them from his point of view. So then I think there was a lot of, like, my brain being like, wait, do all these people see them? Because they're always around and they're being described, people who had that mandate of heaven that could see them. It just was a couple times I'm like, what are the ghosts doing here? What do they have to do with this?
Yeah, so only the Prince of Radiance and the monk could see the ghosts. So they're the only two that could.
I think sometimes just the way that she described the ghosts being around people and everything made my brain be like, oh, all these people can see them. I really think just towards the beginning, I just didn't get the significance of them. And so then anytime they were brought up, I was just like, why? Why are the ghosts here? Why are we talking about them? And whatever. And like, I get that for Ouyang, it was his family that followed him around, the ghosts. He had to avenge, but then he didn't know they were there. So I'm hoping that they kind of maybe go more into the spirit world in the second one, and that's why there's like this setup behind it, because they do talk about the spirit world towards the very end.
So spirit world's another thing that connects it to Avatar, because Avatar talks about the spirit world. Obviously, it's the whole point of the Avatar. I agree. I don't think the mandate of heaven / the ghost was a good addition to the story. Obviously, if there's more driving force for it in the next book, and this is just the setup, then that's fine. But if you don't go full into it, I don't think it was worth putting in. Like, the mandate of heaven is this, like, power, essentially. It's really hard to pick up, understand, when this book is so focused on a realistic standpoint. I personally don't like the mandate of heaven. I think we could have just had the Prince of Radiance is a prince, like a very Daenerys, like coming to take the throne type deal. Even if he is an 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy. I just really wished there was more into it. It was very lost in everything else. Every time they said, like, mandate of heaven, I knew what they were talking about, but I didn't know the purpose of it. I really wished that it was drawn out a little bit more, but I'm giving Shelley the benefit of the doubt and hoping that it's explained more in the next one.
Yeah, the main confusion with the mandate of heaven that I had is they never went into fully what it was.
Yeah.
Like, it was never fully like, this is how you get it, this is what it does.
I don't know, man. Now that she's quote unquote the mandate of heaven, I'm hoping that now they have to learn about it. Because before it's like there's only one, maybe they're just like, blindly loyal to somebody that they don't know what's going on. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more.
Yeah. Because, like, she could see the ghosts since she was 9 years old.
Yeah.
So then...
But she didn't see him until her dad died.
Yeah. But then it's like... So then that makes you think, okay, well, was she secretly actually destined for greatness this entire time? And the only reason why her destiny was not given to her correctly is because she changes her name. But it is supposed to be, like, from the body. So that's why I'm like...
Yeah.
If she could see ghosts from when she was like 9, but she didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And she never tried to really figure it out until, like, the Prince of Radiance told Ma that, you know, you could see the ghosts with the Mandate of Heaven, but then she could see them. So then it's like she already had some sort of power, and she started to produce that, like, flame. Mm-hmm. But then she kills him to get the Mandate of Heaven. So I was like, okay, so she had some sort of power, but she needed his.
Yeah.
But where did she get this little bit that she had? Like, I really do hope it is explained more.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I was ignorant and wasn't paying attention, or that I just generally didn't pick it up, or if it was just not explained very well.
And it really could be that that's on purpose, so that you question it, and then it's explained more in the second one. But.
Yeah. They like to come in with their little plot twists and stuff. Some things that I didn't really love, I don't have very many. I will praise this book back and forth all the way around the world, but it is easy to kind of get lost in some of the emotions that trying to explain. It's kind of repetitive in some points, especially when they are talking about her fate. They're going over and over and over again and talking about, like, I'm not gonna die, I have nothing, I am nothing, like, I want to hide from the heavens and stuff. It can get a bit repetitive talking about it all the time. I get the point of it, you know. It's easy to get lost into it, and some of the metaphors and similes can get a little bit much. Not that I don't love it. I love metaphors in some ways, so I'm here for it. But some other people might not like that. I think the ending was too fast. We're going to talk about the ending in a little bit, but especially Isun's death. That was very rushed to me, and the jumping around. It took me a second to even realize that she killed the Prince of Radiance because it's so fast. Mm-hmm. We go from Isun's death, we hop here, we hop here, we hop here, we hop here, and then he's like, I'm going to be the Emperor. Okay. Like, Go off, King.
The last hour. Something's gotta get, like, wrapped up here. Mm-hmm. But it did jump really fast. A lot of things happened within that last hour or however many chapters of the book that things got skipped over a little bit too quickly, where, like how we came to the very end of her standing there declaring herself the King of Radiance. I don't get how she got that city again. Like, that isn't described. And I get that maybe it's like, oh, well, this has already happened, so we're just doing it again. And so we're, like, going past it. But, I mean, these are huge things for them. I'm the King of Radiance, and I have this new name. And, you know, Oyoung kills this entire family of people that he has had to work for. And so it almost feels like it doesn't give him the justice.
Yeah.
But it also is kind of intentional, where he doesn't feel that, maybe. Yeah. So maybe it's like he's trying to rush through it because he so badly didn't want to do it. I felt like the rest of the book was very well paced.
Yeah.
I wasn't, you know, typically very confused. Like, when they did the time skips and everything, it always made sense, where it'd be like, okay, we're skipping kind of like this season because they don't fight in this season, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like, this is the campaign, and
we could have taken a few chapters even out of her beginning life at the monastery and put that into the end. Like, just because I think it's a really good length. I don't think it needs to be any longer. Could it be longer? Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Put like 6 more chapters at the end real quick.
Yeah. I wish there was just a little bit more at the end to flesh out. And I don't know if maybe they didn't know they were going to get a sequel, or if they did know they were going to get a sequel, so they just wanted to set up for the next one so that way you can get all of it in the next one. I don't know what the mindset was, and I'm not going to put a stamp on it because I don't know, but the end was just a little too fast.
Yeah.
But it's no hate to the book, obviously.
Yeah, I still thought the end was good, and I thought that the stuff that they did at least made sense. Like, I don't think that there was things that happened that just made absolutely no sense, and then they were also glossed over. Like, it was things that I think we knew the whole time was going to happen. It almost felt like it had all this build up to it, and then they didn't get their, like, time in the sun. Maybe that really was intentional, where at that point, those things didn't matter as much to them as they used to. Yeah. And so then it was just like, get it over with. I gotta keep moving on.
Yeah. Speaking of sun, can we talk about the fact that this title of this book is a pun?
So good.
She who became the sun, UN, but it's also she who became the SON, sun. Get it? Do you get it? It's a pun.
Add that to my dislikes. Just kidding.
I wanted to talk about the title for a second. It's such an iconic title. Like, she who became the sun. The ultimate source of power in our existence.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is just such a force of nature.
It's a crazy thing to compare someone to.
Yeah, and she is. She does become the sun.
It is not an exaggeration.
And then the next one we have He Who Drowns the World, which...
Also a really good title.
Also such a great title. With some boats on the front, and I'm excited to see what that means. Like, are we going... I don't want to get to predictions now, but are we going on a boat campaign? Like, what's happening?
Cute.
I know that they were talking about ships at the end, but I love the cover. Both this one and the British version is so good. I'll probably post the British version on, like, the Instagram and stuff, but the American version is also... It's just iconic. Like, it just drew me in. The color scheme is so nice.
Obviously, I love the color scheme. Those are my favorite colors. It's such a good title. Whenever you first read it, I remember seeing it and being like, wow, what a cool title. Like, it's so powerful and it, like, really draws you in. And then as you're reading it, it makes so much sense. And I think that that is something that a lot of books don't get, where the title is, like, actually... so relevant to the story and makes sense, because it's hard to come up with a title for a book, honestly, because how can you summarize everything that happens, and how can you not have a title that already exists? Oh, I want to know what that's about.
Yeah.
And then He Who Drowned the World, too, is so good. It, in contrast to each other, too, they're really great, because, like, the color differences, and then, like, the titles, the covers, all that. Yeah. Beautiful.
And unfortunately, it is a duology, so there won't be another book. So the first thing, like, I really want to talk about, and we've dabbled in it, is that F word, fate. And how it's such a driving force for this story. So I DM Jadestone, and Jadestone is very fate-oriented. So when I read this book, it just gave me some, some juice, and...
I wish you didn't.
But I connected to it a little bit more, because my story is also based on the idea of fate, and you get to see the repercussions of these things, and how important it is, and that fate is literally everything. It's a driving force for this, and it's a very much a focal point. So if you're not really into, like, fate and destiny, which is, I think, a very big focal point in any kind of fantasy book that you read. But this one, it definitely takes it to a different perspective. Our big thing is fate and the driving force of it that is for every character, essentially, but specifically for Shu and Oyeon. And we talked about it a little bit, but there is that compare and contrast with their fate. There's Shu, who is a devil trying to get her fate that she's been promised. Even though it was promised to her brother, she does whatever she can. She hides from the heavens to show that she has become her brother and to take that fate. She's such a fate taker. Like, she takes Chongba's fate, she takes Fang's fate, she takes everyone's fate.
She's a little thief.
Yeah, and she just gobbles them right up.
Num num num.
Where Oyeon repels that fate. He doesn't want his fate. He doesn't want anyone's fate, essentially.
He wishes she would take his. Yeah. He's like, here, please.
And she's like,
do this for me.
That's expired.
No, I don't like that one. That one's not that fun. It doesn't give me power.
Oyeon and Zhu's biggest comparison and contrast is their destiny of fate and their drive to it.
It's to the highest level of extreme. Growing up, your kid, sibling, gets something better than you. Like, they get the candy bar that you really like, and you just don't like it, and you're like, well, I'm gonna take theirs. I'm gonna do everything I can to get that candy bar. If your sibling gets up and walks away and leaves the candy bar there, it's yours to take, Yeah. I really do enjoy all of the information on fate and how it's, like, really driving it, because I think it's present in a lot of stories because it is something really important. Characters need that. They need something to push them along and to drive them. And I think that fate or destiny is a really easy way to do that. But I don't think it's a cop-out. I think that it makes sense, especially in this story. I think it's done really well. She is grabbing a hold of fate as much as she can, and she is really not worried about the consequences, because she's like, no, I'm gonna achieve this no matter what, because I said so. You have Oyeon, who is so badly, like, trying to run from his. He just doesn't want it. And to see, like, how they think about fate so differently, having the two main characters having that, like, contrast between them is really important, because you don't want it to feel like the same. How her chasing after that fate changed her. To me, that was something that I don't see it as a dislike. It hurt my feelings a little bit, but I didn't dislike it because I think it was really important and it really made sense. How, she starts as this kid who is so smart and she's so driven and powerful, and you really are rooting for her. And then towards the end, I don't feel like I was rooting for her because she kind of was a terrible person, and it was because she got lost in that greed of the power, and you know, she still was so smart, and I respected that she went for what she wanted. You see how it really changes someone, and how she didn't care anymore about these people that she was supposed to care about. If it hurt them, she was going to do whatever she needed to do.
And she knew that she was losing herself, and she knew that she had to do these things because she, again, is one-track mind. She's gonna achieve what she wants to achieve. It's not if she's gonna achieve it, it's when and how she achieves it. And that's why Ma is such a floaty in the water. Like, she is what pulls her back and helps her make these decisions. And it was Chu's response to do this. Was like, I want to marry you because you deserve somebody that will make you happy, but also you deserve to have a say in the future that you're going to live in, and you will help me make these decisions. I don't care if you agree with them. She straight up was like, yeah, I killed that kid. I did it. Yeah. I'm the mandate of heaven now. You like it or not, but I want you on my side. Yeah. I want you to achieve this greatness with me.
It's hard because at the end, I really wanted Ma to say no. I kind of did. She doesn't deserve you. I mean, she really is using her to get to where she wants to be and as that grounding force. But she at least is honest about it. She's like, yes, that's what I'm doing. I need you here because I need someone who tells me to find another way. But when this is the only way, I'm gonna do it. It's hard because it hurts.
And she even says that. She's like, Ma, at the end when she does, we'll talk about the ending a little bit later, but at the end, she does kill the Prince of Radiance, this 9-year-old boy that Mom was starting to get attached to. She was feeling motherly towards. Ma's like, why do you have me here then if you won't listen to what I have to say? If you would have talked to me, I would have told you this was a bad idea. And she was like, girl, this is my future. Right. I respect you, but in the end, I have a fate that I have to choose. So it's very much a double-edged sword, where Ma is something that grounds her, but also is something that could eventually get in her way, which I have a prediction for later. But yeah, their relationship is very interesting.
The fate changed them and everything, and the power, and it's really hard as a writer to make a main character who starts likable and people root for and then ends the opposite. I think that's really hard to do because a lot of the time people do it the opposite way. They want their characters to, be redeemed. It was hard to see that because you're like, man, I really was rooting for this girl. Of all of the people, do I hope that she gets that power? Probably, because it's not like anybody's better. Also, it does hurt a little bit to see her giving up on this.
It's just as hard to do the wrong thing as it is to do the right thing. And I think as a writer, you have to decide if you want this character to do this because you want to tell a story, or if you want your character to be likable. A lot of people do get turned off by the fact that a character is digressing in their progression of character development. Very strong for an author to be like, I don't care. I have a story to tell, and I want my characters to do this, so they're gonna do it. And one of Shu's dislikability is that she's not afraid to do what she wants to do, even if in some eyes it's bad. And that is a likability of her at the same time. It's like she's a very courageous person that is propelling herself into a future that she knows she's going to get. Again, it's not a if, it's a when and how. I think that's an awesome ability to be able to do as a writer, and being able to take that leap is courageous, especially for a debut novel.
Oh yeah, really important to the story, and I'm really glad that Shelley did it and didn't chicken out. So because a lot of people would.
So who would you say in this one is your favorite character?
I picked Woo-young. He was just so strong. It's almost impossible how he was able to do everything that he did based on the life he's had. A lot of people would give up on their entire future and just give in and give up, and he probably, if he wasn't this strong and motivated, he probably would have just died.
Yeah.
everyone would have forgot about him and his family name. But I really like that he's like one of the bad guys, one of the antagonists technically, but he's not. And you see all the different sides of him where he loves really strongly, but he has to push himself away from that because he knows it will get in the way of what he has to do. And for him, he knows it's wrong in this world for him to love another man, but he does against his will. And it, of course, is the one person that he should just not love. I just thought that he was really cool, and I really like him pushing back on fate. But, you know, like you said, our D&D campaign that is really fate-based, and I really liked him because I can kind of see some similarities with my character that I play, where she's pushing back really hard on fate because she doesn't really like the way that things are fated to be. And so I like that part of, if they're going to end my family line, then I'm going to end theirs. Although he had almost given up on himself, he continued to fight because he knew that's what he needed to do.
Yeah, I really liked how his revenge plot, we don't really get a lot in it. We get to know, like, the main focus of it and, like, why he's doing it. But once he starts planning things, we don't see anything. We just see the deaths that occur and the betrayal. And then him and Lord Wang almost kind of, like, teaming up at the end. So him being a eunuch general is very interesting because everyone else goes on and on about how beautiful he is. And there's a little bit of speculation that maybe he is a woman. We don't ever get confirmed on that. And I think that would be very interesting because let's just keep bringing women into this, okay?
Yes.
I'm cool with that.
More and more women, please. Thank you.
Yeah, we see how much he hates that part of himself. And that makes him more complex too and gives a little bit more that he isn't just revenge. He also has things about himself that he doesn't like. There is that depth within him because he sees all the things that he messes up on and the mistakes that he makes and the choices that he makes aren't always the right one. And we get to see him kind of come back from all of those. And the downfall when he lost all 10,000 of those men. And we get to see him coming back from that. We get to see him make errors and then redeem himself from them. Yeah. So it makes him more of a relatable character.
Him constantly taking the blame for things that aren't his fault, but then continuing to still push himself to do the things that he needs to is just like crazy, because at some point anyone else is going to give up. I mean, it shows that he is a good general where he knows it wasn't his fault. Then he has to find ways to get around that, and he is a good general. I think he would be a great general for the red turban side if you wanted to switch over.
So I have a favorite character, but I also have an honorable mention. Honorable mention being, I really liked Isun. I think he was, weirdly enough, had this innocence about him. Like, he just wanted his brother and his general, and he just wanted to chill and vibe. Obviously, he did not get to choose that, but he didn't feel like he wanted to fight. And it just gives you that idea of, like, what happens if he stayed the prince without having the misconduct of his dad dying, that misunderstanding of Wang. Like, if he didn't have that, and he wasn't pushed with rage and innocence lost, would he have been a more peaceful person if he didn't have his dad on his back? Because obviously he is still a commander and he's still the prince. How much of it was for show and how much of it was actually him? Because he was so gentle with Unyan, but was that just for him or was it actually who he was? Like, I think there was more there that we could have gotten from Isun, and I would have loved a point of view for him. We got a few scenes with him, but it was always talking about work, essentially. Like, we don't get any depth to him.
The shift in him once he became the prince, he had lost who he was by becoming this person he didn't want to be. He was just drunk all the time, and he had given up, which is unfortunate for a prince. Once he finally gets that title, you know, because people usually they want that. That's something that they dream about getting, and a lot of people in this world would have killed for that, and then he gets this position and he doesn't want it, and he kind of just giving up on the things that he kind of loved, because he can't go out and campaign anymore because he doesn't have an heir. So he has to stay there, and he, like, talking about how he has to give up all these things that he used to love and do, and then he has to give up his brother because he thinks that he killed his father and all this. And so he has a hard end there, and then he just dies, and it's so sad that he never gets
to redeem himself.
He doesn't get what he he deserves. I think he's one of the better of the people.
He's still a bad person.
Yeah.
He did bad things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, he was the commander, so of course he did bad things himself, but then also told other people too. But
there's no good people in this.
No.
Ma is probably our safest option.
Yeah. I think he's one of the best, especially on that side.
Yeah. My favorite characters, obviously, our little monk, our little Xu Changba. I just really love her so much. She's such a great female main character. Like, one of my favorite female main characters. Very strong, minded, and, physically strong. No, definitely not. Can't even hold a sword.
Does her best, I guess. She's almost stronger after losing a hand, which is weird.
One-track mind, but not in a pure bad way. Is driven, very morally gray, obviously. Just raw, has an interesting mind. There's just so many good qualities about her. I couldn't imagine this story told by anybody else in any other way. You can tell that the author cared about this character, and it really shows. And I'm glad that we get to see her when she's younger and have that origin story. Do I wish it was a little bit shorter? Yeah, just to give a little bit more length in the end. But I think it was important nonetheless. Seeing where she comes from to where she's going. Very much rags to riches, the underdog story, which is a common trope, but just it's done so well in the story. So just want to take a second here to shout out the Patreon subscribers. So a huge shout out to some peeps.
Yeah, these people are pretty awesome. We appreciate all of them. And that is Nick W, Bree P, Ashley A, Tim O, Janeth P, Patrick C, Emily P, Jack J, Mike T, Tracy H, Hunter H, Stephanie A, and of course Lulu. This list, I'm just hoping this list gets so long that it takes 10 minutes for the podcast, and then it's just you make your guest read it every time, and then you hand them a full sheet of printer paper, a scroll, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's the trajectory." So make sure that you subscribe to the Patreon so that people can be really uncomfortable as guests, and people will be like, I don't want to come back, I don't want to read the Patreon shout out again.
Because you don't gotta go through. You can just skip past this part if you
they
really
have to.
But they have to do it.
Think of those minutes they have to sit there, the longer the list gets.
Perfect. Anyways. But no, seriously, thank you guys so much. You're not just a name on a page, for me. I appreciate it so much. You guys are the real MVPs here. So thank you so much for supporting the podcast. I enjoy doing this, and it's cool that a couple people are listening to it. So if you guys want to be part of the Patreon shout out, head over to Patreon and subscribe today. So a big theme throughout this book is obviously gender roles and gender identity. So we have every character, I think, in some form of way connects to this. We have the very obvious ones, like our main character, Zhu, as she goes through her life as a woman, but as a man. It's interesting because the entire story, she uses her pronouns whenever she's in, this is third person, obviously, but whenever we're in Shu's point of view, it's always she. But when we're in Ma's point of view, it's always he until later on when she finds out. So it's very interesting to go back and forth and have that mindset for Shu. We have Ma, who is a woman in this world where women don't have a say in anything, and who are very much viewed as
property.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it as harsh, but
I mean,
it's true. They're not viewed as a proper source of society, which is sad, but obviously not gonna stay for her, because she gonna be a queen. She gonna be an empress soon.
Empress Ma.
Empress Ma.
Got a good ring to it.
Yeah. Oh Young, who is questionably a woman, could be a woman, maybe, but is still seen as a feminine figure because of his beauty. Mm-hmm. It's stated over and over and over again that he is beautiful, to the point that Isun even is like, you're so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And Oyan's like, don't call me that. He's like, you're very feminine and have a feminine beauty, and he gets mad at that, and he's like, don't do that to me. Yeah. You know that I don't want that. Mm-hmm. So it's such an interesting standpoint to have all these different characters have a role being able to understand that and like have it branch out in the story.
It's such a crucial theme to this story, and it's so interesting to see how everyone's perceived differently. Especially, I remember there being a quote where Zhu's like, I've been living this whole time as a woman, but how can I be if this body does not house a woman? Because she had fully convinced herself to convince heaven that she was her brother, she was a man, but she still had this woman's body, and she still used her pronouns as well. So a lot of the time she was very confused with it. I really liked when she was coming into her own a little bit more later, where she almost is like, I'm not a man or a woman, I'm something else. And she kind of claims that for herself, and she starts to feel more comfortable as herself too. Mm-hmm. And it was really nice to see that, because a lot of the time, she was hiding and she was trying to, it's just so hard to be someone else, and then she finally was like, okay, well, this is who I am instead. And then also with like the name change, I think that is going to really help at the end, where she's like, I am this person, I am just me, like I'm not my brother, I'm not who I once was, which we don't know what her name ever was. Mm-mm. So now she's going to be this whole new person, which is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
How that changes her.
Like, she goes through the story and she talks about how she's not comfortable in her body. Mm-hmm. As, like you said, she is a woman, but this body doesn't house a woman. She is a man, but this body doesn't house a man, too. Mm-hmm. Like, she has the anatomy of a woman, but she has gone so long that she is Chungba. It's interesting that after she loses her hand to Ouyang, after they fight, and how she almost starts to accept herself. A little part of that is, I think, Ma's help as she starts to share her body. She starts to be like, maybe I'm okay with who I am, and I don't need to put a label on it type deal. You know what? I'm not a girl or a boy. I'm a mandate of heaven. That's who I am. Yeah. I'm interested to see if in the next book, if the pronouns are going to change. Mm-hmm. Does she start to go by they, them instead?
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. She has these premeditated ideas of who she had to be. And, like, there was a part where she was, like, I think it was, like, basket weaving or something.
Yeah.
Was a woman's job. And her brother, Shuda, was, which we haven't talked about enough. No. Some would say. No. But would say, like, that's a woman's job.
Yeah, like, it was, I think what you're talking about is when she, like, the bucket broke, and he's like, take it to get fixed. And she's like, well, I could do this. But then she talks herself out of it, because she's like, no, that's something a woman would do. I'm not supposed to know how to do that. And she does that a lot, where she starts to be like, I'm making choices that he wouldn't have, and I'm doing things that he shouldn't do. Men don't know how to do, or they just don't do.
Yeah.
That was, like, part of what made it really hard for her, is she continued to still make the choices because she knew they were the right one, or do the things, but then she was like, heaven's gonna find out.
Yeah, she tries to hide from heaven a lot, which I think is so interesting. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's the one person you can't hide behind. Yeah. Like, you can't hide from fate. It's impossible to hide from fate. Yet she tries so hard to. Yeah, why haven't we talked about Shuda? That's messed up.
I don't know.
A moment for Shuda, please. Alrighty, so who would you say in this book is your favorite relationship?
Well, speaking of Shuda, my favorite relationship is the little monk brothers that we have here. I just really liked any time that they were together, and how Shuda got to be a brother to her that she didn't have. Because, of course, she had a brother. We know that from the very beginning, that's whose fate she took. Mm-hmm. But he was never acted like that. He never cared about her. And so she has somebody who cares about her while they're in the monastery. He always, even though he was a couple years older and he left before her, he would always come back and see her. And he was the first person who knew that she was a woman. Not because she told him, because he just found out. Mm-hmm. And invited her to, like, share his bed.
Not in a creepy way.
No, not in a creepy way. And he never was creepy towards her, which I was really happy about, because I was worried at a couple points that it was going to happen.
He was a playboy.
He was. As a monk? Dude, chill. But that is something that I really liked and I was very happy about, is that they could just be friends and there was never anything that happened between them. He never even attempted to be creepy in any sort of way. Like, that was his brother, even though he knew that she was a woman. And I wrote down, like, one of these little quotes. It said, people said that a single day without a dear friend could feel like 3 autumns. And obviously that was about them, and they had lost each other for quite a few years, and then he came as a bandit, was probably gonna kill as many of them as he could, and then once he saw that was his little brother, then he joins them, and now he has this, like, new career that he gets. But definitely they were my favorite relationship, because anytime they were together, there was no, like, comedic relief in this story, which is fine. I don't think it was necessary, but he was, like, as close to that as you would get, where he was kind of a little more outgoing, a little bit more fun, where he's, you know, at the very end of the last chapter too, he's like, I'll be here, I'll fight with you, whatever you want to do. So yeah. Really a real ride or die. we love him. Mm-hmm. It's mainly because of him that I love this relationship, because he gave a lot more to the relationship than she did. I just like the two of them together, and I like that he was able to give her something that she had never had at that point.
Yeah, I mean, she technically had 8 brothers and an X amount of sisters. True. Even though the story started with only 1 brother, it's because they all died in the famine. All she had was Changba, and he was not a good brother. Mm-hmm. She came to the monastery. He was just like, hey, you're the kid that stood outside for 3 days, right? Like, come hang out with me.
Yeah, he's like, you're cool.
Share my bed. Like, yeah. We get those little excerpts throughout the beginning of the book with Shoda and Chu, and yeah, they're obviously, like, such a standpoint. Him coming back after the monastery is destroyed by Oyeon is so important, because it opens up a lot of branches for Shu that lets her accept her fate a little bit more, because a big thing was, like, she was afraid to kill anybody because it went against her monkness. And when Shoda came back as a bandit, he tells her, you know, I've killed people, and it was decisions that I made. I chose to do that, and it was hard, but it had to be done. Does it make me less of a man or less of a monk? Maybe, but it was decisions I had to do to live in this life. It might have screwed up my afterlife, but I needed to decide this now for this life. That helps her decide what to do moving forward. And I think she never would have been able to kill the Prince of Radiance as easily as she had until Shoda came back. Yeah. And I just love that Shoda. They get in a fight, and turns out he's the bandit leader. He's the leader of the bandit. Mm-hmm. She's just like, hold on a second. Shoda, I know you. And they just start hugging in the middle of this battle, and everyone's so confused because
stop fighting, and they're like,
because this is after the 1,000 men or 10,000 men die, so they're already like, oh my god, he sent from heaven, and then now she's hugging a bandit, so everyone's so confused. He's just like, yes, I'm sticking around. Doesn't even try to leave. He's like, I'm here. No. Like, this is you're my family. I'm a sucker for found family. It's one of my favorite tropes. So I absolutely love the relationship. Yeah. I could go on and on about it, and I will. So anyways, no, I really love the relationship. I do have an honorable mention, though, which we've talked about a lot, but I just really do love Ouyang and Chu. Like, they are quite literally yin and yang. Yeah. They swirl around each other, and they're so different, but also so much alike. Mm-hmm. I just really love their dynamic.
Yeah. The moment where they helped each other, too, which is crazy, because obviously they're supposed to be enemies and all this stuff, but almost wish there was more interaction between them, but I understand why there wasn't and why there couldn't be, because of course they were enemies and they should have killed each other if they were in the same space, but they didn't. Not yet.
Yeah, we'll talk about the ending now, actually. Like, with them helping each other, like, the first time they freaking met was him burning down the monastery, and then they meet again, and he's cutting off her hand. So it's not a good...
Anytime they come together, it's bad vibes.
Yeah. So the one time that they do help by giving the Prince of Radiance is one of those canon events, had to happen type deal. And it's just interesting of, like, why? It's like, what was the mindset of Oyeon at that point? Which I would have loved a POV from him. Yeah. It's like, why did he do it? Because at this point, they're taking over the city. The Prince of Radiance is for some reason in there with the Prime Minister. Why did he do it? Why did he help? Why did he shoot that letter in? It's very much the chain reaction of everything that happens at the end. Yeah, but the ending, we got Prince of Radiance's death, Isun's death. We have her becoming the Radiant King. We have Oyeon kind of disappearing at the end. Yeah. We don't really see where he goes after he kills Isun, which is interesting.
He pretty much is like, I'm gonna go march to my death. See you later. And then leaves. He's like, but you're gonna die. And he's like, I know.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't really remember where he was going. He's just like, okay, bye, and then just is gone. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly, like, he's coming back in the second book, so we'll see what happens to him.
Were you surprised when he killed Isun? Do you think he was actually going to do it?
I wasn't surprised. Honestly, I knew he would be, like, the last to kill of that group. I think that the way he did it, I was a little bit surprised that he did it, like, out in the open like that, too. I would have thought that it would be, like, he goes into his room at night and then they, like, have their conversation. Yeah, gives him a little... And I kind of was expecting more of, like, a confession from him, but I think that it was a little bit too hard for him. Like, Essen tells him, you know, I loved you. And he just kind of... he has nothing to say in response, and I think it's because it hurt too much. He just kills him out in the open in front of his brother. It feels like there's no repercussion to that. Is weird, because, like, that's the prince.
Well, that's the thing is, like, all the people that were watching were on Uyan's side.
That's true.
But we don't see him gathering any of these people. They all turned their sword to Isun. And I don't know if it's because they told him that he was a bad leader. Like, we don't see any of the setup for that.
Yeah.
Are they on Lord Wong's side? Like, whose side are they on? It was just like, yeah, these are all my followers. They're all turning against you, too.
It sounded like it was because they all were Nandrin, which they had said, you know, they were fighting with the Mongols, but they were trying to erase who they were as people. So I think that was kind of like the only partial reason they gave, is all the people left were Nandrin, because that's what he spoke to them. Not seeing the build up to that, like, I liked not seeing it in him killing the other generals and everything. I liked that you were kind of led to believe it was somebody else. And then, you know, he was standing there like, wow, this is crazy that this is happening. And you kind of thought it was his brother. Like, that's how they were supposed to make you feel. But not seeing the lead up to this very end part kind of made it a little bit harder. Like, okay, well, how did he gather this group? When did he do this?
Exactly.
Was it like a last minute, I have to do this right this second? Like, I just felt like he would have went in with a little bit more planning, and I didn't think that he would have killed him out in the open like that, too.
Yeah, I think a more intimate death would be better.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the point. Is like, it's supposed to be a big old statement that he's accepting his fate, and he's getting his revenge, and he wants to know everybody else, hey, I got my revenge.
Yeah.
And is he doing it in front of his family? Like, the ghosts that he can't see are there? Like,
yeah.
I think an intimate one would have been better, where he, like, comes into his chambers and, you know, maybe he does confess to Uyan, and then he's like, girl, bye.
I think that would have made a little bit more sense for his character to me, because it felt like that was so harsh and so cold, but also that could have been just a choice that he made because it was easier.
I think it's more of a, he wants to be a leader, so he's going to show these people that are following him now that he can be a leader.
Yeah.
So, we're going to play a little game here. So, you have 15 seconds to name at least 7 people missing a hand or an arm. There are a lot.
What?
So, the big focal point of the end of the book is that Shu loses a hand, and it changes her identity almost. It changes who she is, it changes her mindset on herself, it changes a lot of things for her. Oyan does it saying that this fate is going to be worse for you. You're going to lose a lot of respect because you are losing a part of yourself. You're losing your sword hand. Not that she was good with the sword in any sort of way, but that is a huge part of her character. Okay. And so you're going to name some other characters that have it in any sort of media, movie, games. Would you like me to put 20? Would that make you feel better?
I think I'm going to get about 4 either way, so...
I'll put 20. I'll be generous. Okay. And you may begin now.
Okay, so obviously Toby from Jadestone, number 1. My other thought is Soul Surfer girl. I don't remember what her name is.
Bethany Hamilton?
Yeah, that one. I literally cannot think of a single other
There's so many.
That's missing a hand. Captain Hook. Three people. Toby, Soul Surfer, and Captain Hook.
There's Irvin from Attack on Titan.
That's true.
Bucky Barnes from Avengers.
Yep, that's pretty messed up.
There's Merle Dixon from Walking Dead. Ash Williams from Evil Dead. Okay. There's Luke Skywalker. There's Jaime Lannister, the Terminator. Peter Pettigrew for a second. I did put him down because he does lose his hand for literally like 5 minutes.
True. Okay. Okay.
Long John Silver from Treasure Planet.
from the fast food seafood line, Long John Silver.
And then Edward from Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh,
We're just a few. And then obviously Bethany Hamilton.
I probably could have maybe got 2 more of those.
Okay. But you did get Bethany Hamilton, Captain Hook, and Toby from Jadestone.
The most important of the group.
The only one that matters.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So what are some things that you would have changed, done differently if you were writing this masterpiece of a book? Just like your own personal opinions.
It's bold of me to assume that I could change anything about a book this good. I think it was phenomenal. I think the end could have been a little bit longer, a little bit more explained. Like, I can't think of a way that I would have told this story better. Or anything that I thought was truly missing. Only thing I kind of want to know is I want to know what her name was.
Yeah.
I really want to know what her name was before she took over as her brother.
I don't know. I kind of find it interesting that we only know her as the girl.
Yeah.
Because it shows that it didn't matter who she was. But it would have been cool.
I don't think it's necessary. Yeah. It's just I'm nosy and I want to know.
Gotcha. I really don't have a lot at all. My biggest ones were just more talking before Oh Young killed Eason. Just a little bit more discussion. Like, I just wanted there to be more connection there. It felt very detached in the sense that it was over so fast. And then just more of Oh Young before we get introduced to him, where he is in his standpoint. I wish we had more of when he was younger. If he is such a big main character like Zhu, I wanted more like she got. But my biggest one is I really wish there was a chart of names and a pronunciation guide in the front and the back, some sort of glossary where we had everyone and what side they're on. Like, I made you one for the podcast. Just throw that back there. I think would have been helpful because there are so many names and like there's so many places and there's so many like really hard things to pronounce. I think it would have been cool to just have a little bit of that.
I think every book needs that, but it was very helpful, the list that you made me, and I think that a lot of people would benefit from that, just because, especially when sometimes, you know, they have 2 names and they'll be called one or the other or both, especially reading the audiobook, because I'm not reading the name on the page.
Yeah.
Made it a little harder when they'd say a name really fast and I'd be like, wait, who's talking right now?
It's harder when they say their surname and then they say their first names at different points because it's like a thing of respect.
Yeah.
Because like you can't call somebody their name until you like really know them. And you get to see that, which is cool because you get to see that with like Shu as she meets Ma and only calls her Ma and then eventually says her first name later on, which I'm unfortunately not going to attempt because I don't think I can get it. So what do you think is going to happen in He Who Drowned the World?
Main thing I'm expecting is I think we're going to see the eventual downfall of Ouyang. I hope that he does get to defeat Khan like he wants, because that is who actually killed his father, but I'm not sure if he'll end up getting there. It's going to be a lot more of him really like scrambling because the red turbans are getting so much stronger and they keep winning. And I mean, there's no prince anymore. That family is gone. So who does he report to now?
Yeah.
And all that, and trying to figure that out. So I think we're going to see probably his eventual downfall, which will be very sad because I like him, but probably necessary. And then I think we're going to see what this new King of Radiance will bring. I honestly don't know if we'll see her become emperor. I don't know if that will happen. One of my predictions was going to be when they had that moment where the Prince of Radiance, they were watching over him, I was going to be like, oh, they adopt him. And then she killed him. And I was like, oh, ouch. Okay. Because of course Ma got so attached to him immediately. But I was like, oops, well, they're not adopting him now. He's dead. But I really don't know. I'm terrible at predicting things. I'm not great at following stuff that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's probably going to be important later, which is great because then I'm always surprised.
Yeah.
So that's more fun for me.
See, I think my predictions are going to be loosely based on like how well they stick to the actual history of it, because spoilers, she does become the emperor, is like the history of it. But it's a retelling, so it could always change.
Yeah.
Maybe like like she like just barely grasps it and then ends up dying. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. Some predictions I have, I will say it does have a higher rating, so I'm excited to see how better it's gonna be, because if it has a higher rating than this one already has a high rating.
Phenomenal.
So it's got to be better, right?
I'm gonna have you read it and then
tell you if it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think the mandate of heaven / the ghost will play a bigger role now that she is the Prince of Radiance, or like the Radiant King. It's gotta play a bigger role in it. I think that it's gonna end up being very Game of Thrones, where it's gonna be Zhu, Oyen, and it's gonna be Lord Wong, Madame Yang. So I think she's gonna come back and have a big role in this story, and I think it's gonna end up with the four of them fighting for land, because I feel like she's gonna want power now that she's tasted it, and I feel like she's gonna like want to push for, because I don't think she'll be able to become a king or the emperor. I think she's gonna push for maybe her husband to be the emperor, so she can be the empress, so she can be at least the queen.
Yeah.
So I think she's gonna push for power for her family, especially because she's about to have a baby. So she wants her family to have some sort of power moving forward. Some like smaller ones is that Shu Da might possibly have children with Ma, so that way Zhu and Ma can adopt them. Big thing about adoption in this world so far. So there could possibly be, because again, if she sticks to the history, they have kids together. So it's like, could possibly think. I think Shu Da is gonna die. And the next one.
And it's going to be so tragic.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be like a... Zhu has to either choose, does she choose to be emperor, does she choose to save Shu Da? Or Shu Da is just going to get in the way somehow, and she's going to have to kill him off. I feel like that's going to happen, as sad as it is.
If she is to kill him, I'm going to be way more sad than if he just dies.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it's a war, like, it's not surprising if he dies, but if she kills him, I'm gonna be so mad at her.
So I'm very interested. My biggest one is because we get such a big POV for Ma, I feel like Ma's gonna betray Zhu somehow. She's going to do something, especially after the Prince of Radiance being killed. I feel like she's gonna betray her. At the end, we have like, yeah, I'm with you. I kneel before you as your loyal servant, essentially. At some point, she's gonna betray her. I don't know why. I just feel it.
I hope she does.
Oh.
Hey, if you're gonna teach your wife that she can desire things, then she might betray you.
Yeah.
As she should.
Exactly. But unfortunately, it is time for us to go. But before we do, we're gonna do one last thing. We're gonna do the rating scale. Though we do it a little bit different here on the Book Stop We Make Up Our Own Thing. So I would give She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan 5 smart, cunning, queer, creative, beautiful women in power out of 5.
Woo! Wow, when was your last?
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
I think Fourth Wing, honestly. That probably wasn't the most recent one, but I did do Fourth Wing at 5 out of 5. Yeah, my 5 out of 5 for this year. I know the second I finished this book, the first time I read it, I immediately put it a 5 out of 5. I just really, really like this story. And again, it's very different for me because I don't typically pick up historical fiction either, but after reading Song of Achilles, which is kind of a historical Greek mythology retelling, I was just very excited about this. I love Asian-inspired culture, though. Like, I'll read and listen and watch anything that's Asian-inspired. I think it's just a beautiful culture and a rich history, and there's so much in it. When I picked up this book, I was just like, okay, a queer retelling, I'm always in for that. So just a beautifully written book. I can't go on about it enough. It's just so well thought out. The main character, Zhu, she's just so interesting. And I think they gave us everything to just eat up. So what about you?
I give She Who Became the Sun 4.5 ghosts of your ancestors out of 5. It's hard for me to give a 5 out of 5 because
why?
Because the Foxhole Court series.
You can have more 5 out of 5. You can't be stingy with the stars, man.
Okay, if I was reviewing this on a website, I would give it 5, no matter what, because you have to support the authors. But I think if I'm being real with myself, just on this podcast, it's a 4.5. It is not like anything I ever would have picked up myself. I am not typically that drawn to historical anything. but I thought it was incredibly well written. The story was really interesting through the entire thing. I will most likely read the second book. Which,
after I read it?
Yeah, after you read it and you tell me.
Gotcha.
4.5. Because I did like the plot, but it was a little dense for me on historical stuff at times. Phenomenal book. I would recommend it to anybody, even if you don't typically like historical fiction.
Thank you so much for coming on for the birthday month of me.
The birthday month of me. Just you. No one else was ever born in April.
No.
If you were, no, you weren't.
It's my month. Get out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be here every year for your birthday podcast and for the 75th episode. Very exciting.
75th Hunger Games.
We're gonna have the Hunger Games after this with all of the guests that have ever been on the podcast. So
there will be enough. And it's the 75th where they bring everybody back. So it makes sense.
Should we do it? Should we have a Hunger Games with everybody you know?
Yeah, I'll be Caesar Flickerman, the host.
I like it.
Alright, you guys stay tuned in for that.
Murder.
Unfortunately, Sabrina will not be on for the rest of the year, so you guys
really sad.
Can cry about that. Maybe we'll do like a random little episode, unreleased episode on the Patreon, so you guys subscribe to listen to it. But
if we feel like yapping.
Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, you guys have a great rest of your year. Bye.
Thank you for turning the pages with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support by leaving a review, sharing the episode, and following the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast. Join us on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too.